So today we're starting with the next spread in chapter 10, which is looking at 10.3, which focuses on this topic of private health insurance. So the main kind of area that we're covering in chapter 10 is Australia's health system. And Australia's health system wouldn't be what it really is without private health insurance. Like, yeah, sure, Medicare does play a pretty big role, but Medicare is what we call as public health care. And we know that public health care, having doctors, having hospitals is important, but sometimes we also need extra healthcare services. We need additional healthcare services that are not covered by Medicare. Things like psychologists or physiotherapists, things like acupuncture, alternative health therapies. So we need those things as well. And so basically private health insurance takes into account all these other additional health services, and that's what we're covering today. So if we're looking at defining what private health insurance is a kind of health service. It's a kind of health insurance where it's providing you with additional services, okay? Not essential services like doctors and hospitals, but additional, okay? Obviously, not every single person in Australia has private health insurance cover, okay? Because you don't need private health insurance cover to survive, okay? Or to have basic healthcare. Basic healthcare is covered by Medicare. But again, like I said before, if you want additional services, in addition to those that are covered by Medicare, so rather than just having access to public hospitals, which is what Medicare allows us, you want to have access to private hospitals as well. You want to have access to psychologists. You want to have access to physio, okay, all of those services. Or you want to have access to dental, okay, without paying too much out of your pocket. These are things that you might consider when taking out private health insurance, because private health insurance covers these additional services. Now, the problem with private health insurance compared to Medicare is that private health insurance isn't something that's just deducted out of your tax. It's not just something that the government kind of just charges you a small amount for every year and just kind of takes out of your tax money, like what they do with Medicare. Okay, private health insurance is different in the sense that if you want a private health cover, you have to actually go to a private health insurance provider. So that could be Medibank, that could be Bupa, and you would have seen a lot of these in shopping centers and things like that. These are private health insurance providers. And so in the same way that if you go to get like car insurance or, home insurance, there are many different companies. There are also many different companies for private health insurance as well. So private health insurance basically covers this range of services here. And regardless of which company you go with, you have to pay what we call a premium. Okay, premium means that's a monthly cost. So think about your mobile phone. If you're on a contract for a mobile phone, every month you're paying maybe 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever amount of dollars per month to have that mobile phone service and to have that mobile phone maybe. It's the same thing with private healthcare. Every month you're paying a cost to maintain that healthcare insurance or that health insurance there. And that is basically what we call as the premium. The premium is the cost that you pay for private health insurance, and most people elect or decide to pay this on a monthly basis. Of course, when you're in the Medibank office sitting there with one of the consultants, you can decide if you want to pay it on a monthly basis, or you want to pay it by fortnight, or you want to pay it by weekly. It's up to you. But in most cases, it becomes more value to pay it on a month-by-month basis. And most people choose to do it that way. So there are obviously a lot of different private health covers and at different costs. Obviously, the more expensive private health covers actually cover more extensive services, okay? So as of recently, the government actually started to divide private health insurance types into things like gold, so gold class private health insurance. Then you had silver, and you had bronze, and then I think the other one was just called basic. So that just covered really the basic types. So obviously, you can imagine that the gold standard private health insurance, or the gold type, would basically cover the more extensive types of surgeries there, okay? And gold is usually the type that covers surgeries and more things that would be more expensive and more more heavy in terms of its use of resources. Things that are covered by bronze are just your basic hospital visits to a private hospital, maybe basic surgeries and that kind of stuff. Okay, bronze also tends to cover just your basic rehabilitation and that kind of stuff. So essentially, anyway, depending on which cover you choose, the services that you will have will be different. Okay, obviously, if you want to have, extensive services, or you want really high level services, you're going to have to pay the extra dollar to get the higher service or the higher type of private health insurance there. Okay, now on top of that, there are two types of covers that you can get through private health insurance. If you're a person that's like, you know what, I'm happy with the public healthcare system, I'm happy to be looked after in a public hospital if worst comes to worst, I just want the extra services. I just want these little itty bitty things like dental or physio or acupuncture, but I don't want to go for the full private hospital cover. I just want the extras. You can actually choose to only get extras cover. And that's a lot cheaper compared to getting private hospital plus extras. Okay, now you can also choose alternatively that if your teeth are all in good shape and you don't have any optical or optical requirements, like your eyesight is perfect, you don't ever see the need for physio or acupuncture or those services, you might not even choose to get an extras cover. You might choose to only get private hospital cover. Okay, so people can either get only extras cover, or they can actually get only private hospital cover. You can also choose to combine the two. So you can choose to get both hospital cover and extras cover as well. So that obviously when you combine the two, it's going to be more expensive, which means you're going to pay higher premiums, which means higher dollars per month, or higher costs essentially. So remember, whenever you see the word premium, premium simply means the cost that you pay for private health insurance, usually on a monthly basis. Alrighty, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an introduction into what private health insurance is. Now, just to show you guys, just to give you an idea of what kind of services are covered by private health insurance, you can see here in this graph that these are the kinds of services that Australians were using in the 3 months kind of leading up to September 2017. So essentially, you can see that there are services here like acupuncture, which maybe some of you use, maybe some of your parents or aunts or uncles maybe refer to this. It's not very common though. Chiropractors are pretty common because a lot of people have issues with the joints and things like that. Dental is extremely common. As you can see, a lot of people use dental. And one of the reasons is that if you don't have private health insurance, dental can be quite expensive, especially when you're an adult and you're no longer covered by the Medicare dental plan. It can be very expensive to get dental cover. Dietetics, so dietetics is referring to like dietary kind of things and nutritionists and that kind of stuff. Natural therapies are like things like aromatherapy and all that kind of stuff. Optical is obviously your glasses, your contact lenses, Specsavers, all of that stuff. Physiotherapy is, we know physio is used by people who have injuries, who want to rehabilitate themselves. Podiatry is basically referring to issues of the feet. And psychology or group therapies like mental health services. So we can see here that there are a range of different services. And if I was only to decide that, I only want extras cover. Okay? I go into Medibank and I tell them, I only want extras cover. I don't want private hospital cover. I don't want to pay too much. I just want the basic extras cover. Your basic extras cover will cover all of these services that I mentioned here. Okay, so essentially that's what the extras cover is about. Okay, these are the extra or additional or ancillary services that are covered by private health insurance. Alrighty, so now we're looking at some private health insurance incentives. Okay, what is an incentive? An incentive is something that you get as a kind of reward for doing something. So if you guys have a SAC coming up and all of you complete the practice SAC, and I give all of you like a Freddo when we get back to school. Okay, that's an incentive because I'm giving you some kind of a reward for doing something I wanted you to do. Similarly, the Australian government, ideally, in an ideal situation, they would want everyone to take out private health insurance. The reason for this is that the public health system is extremely overcrowded and extremely overburdened, okay? If you've ever needed like, an important service like emergency wisdom tooth removal or an emergency surgery, when you go into the public healthcare system, you're going to have to wait a lot of time. So you might have to wait 1 year on a waiting list before you can actually get, selected to do the surgery. So it's not like it just happens straight away. Okay, there's already a lot of people waiting. So in order to ease that overcrowdedness and that like burden on the public healthcare system, the government actually gives little incentives, little rewards, little positive consequences for people who take out private health insurance. Because remember, we said not everyone wants to take out private health insurance because it can be expensive. So the first private health insurance incentive that we're going to learn about today, and you're also going to cover this again next year when you do Unit 3, inshallah, is called the government rebate. Now, a rebate is basically cashback. You all know what cashback is. You pay for something, I pay $20 for a medicine, and if I'm getting $10 cashback, it's almost as though I only paid $10 for the medicine because I'm getting some money back there. So that's what rebate is. Rebate is this idea of cash back, okay? Not obviously physical cash, but you get that money back in your tax refund. When you get your tax refund back, that money is given back to you as a rebate. Now, obviously, because premium costs can be expensive, that is the amount you're paying for private health insurance per month can be quite expensive. The government wants to encourage as many people as possible to take out private health cover, and they don't want people to be like, you know what, I really want to take out private health cover, but I can't because it's so expensive and I can't afford it. So the government rebate is one way of the government saying, you know what, it is expensive, but we're going to help you out. We're going to give you money back for taking out the private health insurance. So essentially how much money you get back is going to be dependent on your income. If you're earning like $1 million, the government's going to be like, what, you're already rich in the first place. Get out of here. Why should I give you a rebate? Why should I give you money back? But if you're like a basic income earner who's earning an average or below average income, and you still took the initiative to actually take out private health cover for yourself or your family, the government would really kind of, take that into consideration and give you more rebate back or more money back in your tax refund. So obviously it is dependent on your income, and the amount of rebate or money back that you get is actually going to be dependent on how much money you're earning in the first place and whether you have like a low, middle or high income to begin with. Okay. Also, you can only get a government rebate through private health insurance if you are an Australian citizen or a permanent resident. So that means that you've got to be basically, either living in Australia for a very, very long time and have those residency requirements to actually receive the money back and the rebate. Okay, you can't be someone who's just come here for 2 weeks, take out private health insurance, and then expect the Australian government to give you a rebate, obviously, because you're not a resident of the country. You also need to have a Medicare card before you can be eligible to receive rebate. And this is kind of connected. Obviously, you're not going to have a Medicare card if you're not an Australian citizen or permanent resident. So these two points here are kind of linked up. And all of these points here are summarized in this little orange picture here, which shows you the eligibility requirements for whether you can receive a government rebate or government cashback for your private health insurance purchase. Okay, so that's basically the first one, which is government rebate. Government rebate means the government gives you some money back through your tax refund when you take out private health cover. Okay, and for those of you who don't know what tax refund is, it's basically what your parents, do at the end of every financial year when they lodge their tax. They get some money back through tax. You would have heard about that, and that is basically what is. And a part of that amount of money that they get back will contain that government rebate there, okay? And when you're filling in your tax forms online, when you're doing your tax or lodging your tax, one of the questions is, did you have a private health insurance cover from this period to this period of time? And if you click yes, then they will give you the rebate. Okay, the next one is called lifetime health cover. So the next private health insurance incentive is called lifetime health cover, and lifetime health cover is basically a type of incentive that tries to encourage young people to take out private health cover earlier in their life and to maintain that cover throughout their life. So what do we mean by taking it out earlier in life? Or how do we define earlier in life? Basically, we're looking at we're looking at people trying to take out private health cover before they turn 31 years old. So before they turn 31 years old, and if you look at this graph here, which kind of shows this idea clearly, if you take out private health cover before you're 31 years old, you're paying, let's say there's a specific type of health cover you're taking out. If you take it out before you're 31 years old, you're only paying $93.02 a month. If you take it out exactly when you turn 31, you're paying already a little bit more. If you take out that same hospital cover when you're 40, you're paying $111 for it. If you took out that same health cover when you're 50, you're paying $130 for it, okay? If you decided your whole life, I don't need private health cover, and you just decide at the age of 60 that, you know what, private health cover is something I need, and you take out this same private health cover, you're now paying $148 for that same health cover. That if you had taken out private health insurance earlier in life, you would have only paid $93.02. So this is the government's way of saying, you know what, no one's getting younger in this country, everyone is getting older. So the earlier you take out private health insurance, the better it is for you, because you're looking after your health, and the better it is for us because you're not getting to the age of 60 with a billion different illnesses and diseases and, you know, causing a lot of costs for the public healthcare system. So that's essentially the government's way of trying to get people to take out private health cover when they are young, when they are healthy, so that as they get older and as they get illnesses or sicknesses, if that's what happens, then obviously they have a private health cover there to give them some additional health services. Okay, and this extra cost or this increase in cost that we see as we go further and further up in terms of the age is actually what we call as a loading fee. Okay, so if you're 31 years and you do not have hospital cover, but you decide to take a hospital cover later in life, you will pay a 2% loading fee on top of the cost of the private health insurance. So obviously, the main lesson we have to learn here is the government wants everyone to take private health cover before they turn 31 years old, okay? So that's essentially the main lesson there. So that's why the government does send out all these promotions and all this marketing and all these ads to people to take out private health insurance before they turn 30 years old, so that they've got more than enough time to settle into it and, you know, understand how it works and all that stuff. Okay, so that's lifetime health cover, and that is the second way in which the government tries to encourage people to take out private health insurance. And the third private health insurance incentive, which we did look at when we covered Medicare, is the exemption from Medicare levy surcharge. So exemption means you're excused from paying the Medicare levy surcharge. So just to recap what Medicare levy surcharge is, when we covered Medicare, remember I told you guys that everyone in Australia, whoever's an Australian or permanent resident, whoever can access Medicare, they pay a basic or standard 2% towards the Medicare levy. That's just called the Medicare levy. That's not the additional cost, that's just the standard, okay? So the standard is 2%. So if you're earning $70,000 a year, 2% of that $70,000, the taxable income, will actually go towards funding Medicare, okay? So that's basically the standard. That's what everyone pays. But then we talked about people who earn very high incomes, okay? People who earn incomes that are, you know, within this range or within this range, okay? The 3 tiers or within this range. These are considered high income. So depending on how high your income is, the government kind of looks at you and says, you know what, you're pretty rich. You've got a lot of money on you. You're earning a lot. So you can probably afford to actually give some additional money of yours or fund additional funds of yours towards funding Medicare. Okay, so these people, they not only pay the 2%, the standard that everyone pays, but in addition to this, they pay a surcharge, which means they pay either an additional 1% to that 2% or an additional 1.25 or an additional 1.5%. And these are both in addition to the standard 2% that they also have to pay. Now, this is a problem for people who are high income earners because they're essentially getting taxed more simply because they earn more and they're not really getting any extra benefits out of it. So the government, the third private health insurance initiative or incentive, is basically the government saying, okay, you know what, regardless of what you say, you're a high income earner, so we're still going to charge you the additional surcharge or the additional taxed amount. But if you decide to take out private health insurance, which you can well and truly afford with your income, we will excuse you from paying the additional Medicare levy surcharge, and we'll pretend that you don't have to pay that at all because you've actually taken out private health cover. So if you take out private health cover, then you don't have to pay any additional surcharge, okay? You just got to pay the 2% like everyone else, and you're getting all the benefits and all the good things that a private health insurance cover would give you. So you're essentially, it's like a win-win situation. The government gets more people onto private healthcare, and you're also getting, if you're a high income earner, you're also getting some additional services rather than just paying a useless surcharge. You're actually getting something out of taking out that private health cover. Okay, so that's essentially what the exemption means here, that you're either accepted from it or you're excused from it. So exemption from Medicare levy surcharge means that if you're a high income earner or a very high income earner, you are exempted or excused from paying the Medicare levy surcharge, which is the additional cost if you take out a private hospital cover, okay? through private health insurance. So that's basically what the exemption from Medicare levy surcharge is. And the main reason the government have this incentive in place is that either way, if you're a high income earner earning within this bracket of income, you're pretty well off. You can afford to take out private health insurance. It's not going to put a hole in your pocket or a hole in your wallet. It is going to be something you can well and truly afford. And that's why the government have this incentive, because they know that it's a good offer. It's not something that people will turn down. Okay, so just looking at some kind of just comparing Medicare and private health insurance. So more focusing on private health insurance for this slide here. So private health insurance, some of the advantages are that number one, we get extra cover. Sorry, and I'll just write down. You just got to know just know 2 advantages, and we only have 2 disadvantages anyway. So yeah, some good things are you get extra services. So obviously if you've got Medicare, that doesn't really cover the cost of glasses or contact lenses. It doesn't really cover the cost of physiotherapy if you have an injury. So private health covers additional services that people might need, and that might actually help to boost a person's health further. The next advantage is that if you've got private hospital cover, you can actually choose what hospital you want to go into. So if you're, if you're pregnant and you're going to give birth, you can actually choose that I want a private hospital. I don't want a public hospital. Or if there's a specific surgery that you're getting done, you can choose to actually go to a private hospital compared to a public. Okay. In terms of the quality of services, we can't really say that private health services are better in quality. Healthcare is always more or less the same, but there are certain perks with going for a private hospital. For example, you can choose a specific doctor. Okay, there are certain ways in which the treatment is carried out that people might prefer compared to a public hospital that can be a little bit more hectic and a little bit less patient oriented. Okay, private rooms, that's relating to hospital stays. Choice of doctor, like I said before, shorter waiting list, so you're not waiting like a year or 2 years or so many months on a waiting list for a surgery or a service. And there are decreased demands on public services. So we're taking all the stress and pressure from the public healthcare system, which is Medicare, and pushing it onto the private healthcare system, okay? Because no one uses private healthcare as much as they do with Medicare. So trying to ease the stress that's on the public healthcare system. The disadvantages are obviously higher annual costs. You are paying a premium per month, and it can be very expensive. If you look at how much you're paying per year for private healthcare compared to how much is deducted for Medicare, you're actually paying a lot more for private healthcare. You also may have to pay an excess, okay? So private healthcare, even if you pay your premium per month, it doesn't mean that the service is free. For example, if I've got a cover that covers, if I've got a cover like an extras cover that only kind of covers 30% of the fee, and I go to a dentist and I get a filling for $100, I'm going to have to pay what's it called, some amount of money from my pocket, okay? If they're only covering, sorry, not 30, that should have been 70. If they're only covering 70%, okay, if Medibank is only covering 70% of my fee, I'm still gonna have to pay $30 out of my pocket. I have to take my wallet out, take that $30 out, or take my card and pay that. So that's still an excess that I'm paying, okay? And we sometimes call that excess a gap payment, because whatever the private health insurance provider covers, which is the $70 in this case for the dental filling, I have to pay the remainder of that, which is the $30. That's the gap. That's what's left over for me to pay, okay? Obviously, you can choose private health covers that don't allow you to pay gap. They just cover, we call it 100% or no excess. But the ones that cover 100% are obviously going to be much, much, much more expensive for you to pay per month compared to the ones that only cover a partial amount. So again, this is something that it can get a bit expensive in the long term. Okay, so those are essentially some private health care advantages and disadvantages. Oh, okay, that's it for today. So yeah, the work that you've got to complete for today is 10.3 questions 1 to 8. Now, obviously there's old book and new version of the book. So this is for the new version of the book. I actually don't have my soft copy for the old version of the book. And I've left my copy at school. So if the numbers of these questions don't actually add up in your own version of the book, which is the older version, the old one with the orange front cover, just email me. And if you can just like take a screenshot of your 10.3 questions, then I can just match that up. Okay, so essentially it should be the same across both books, I think. It should be questions 1 to 8. Okay, but if you're not sure, just email me and I'll let you know. All right, that's about it for today. So I'm just going to stop the recording here.